Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of That 80s Child, the Generation Y. And my name is Gabrielle. Welcome to episode 10. Look at me. Look at me. Recording these ahead of time. I'm trying to be consistent. It's very difficult. Okay. So, this episode, I wanted to talk about the second British invasion, which happened during the 80s, which actually lasted a whole lot longer than I thought it did. So, the first British invasion, as we all know, or if we don't know, happened during the 60s, which sparked a new type of music that people were listening to and also how we were listening to it, and the concerts and the change in how the energy of concerts, if you think about it, what concerts looked like back in like the Victorian era versus now. There was a lot of changes during the 60s, and the British invasion was a very big push for those changes in the sound of music. During the 80s, it measured a huge increase in the popularity of British synth pop and new pop within the United States. It began during the summer of 1982 and it peaked in 1983, but it did continue through much of the 80s. MTV was a main catalyst for this second invasion. You have to figure we were going from just listening to the radio, hearing about these people coming out, maybe like on American Bandstand back in the day, and other, like if they were on like a talk show or in the area, there's advertisements. Now MTV was out and it was another form of press, another form of marketing, another form of showing the public like who these people are. And visuals in the 80s were a huge thing. So when you were in a video and you were showing off the band, if you were making it visually appealing as well as the music, and and if the band was visually appealing, which was majority of the time, they were all right, and you kind of skyrocketed, honestly. Rolling Stone magazine stated that British acts brought a revolution, quote unquote, revolution in sound and style to the US, which is true. And this is how it changed in the 60s. There was a big shift in the music and how it sounded, how it was played, and like I said, how it was viewed. Pop music, so it's M-U-Z-I-K by M, was one of the first electropop music. And I had to look them up because I didn't know that. I actually did a lot more research on this because a lot of the bands that I listened to from the 80s, now granted, like I said, born in 83, only 6 years old when we were coming out of the 80s. So I was listening to WMMR, a Philadelphia radio station with Pierre Robert, which my mom listened to all the time, especially during the summertime and we were out swimming. She'd be listening to ZZ Top, She's Got Legs, going around the pool and singing it. Like she was holding me and we were like, going around and singing it to me. So I was very much aware of the music because my mom is very much a music-file. Like she has, I would have to say, I just went through her record collection because she has dementia, like I keep saying, and as it gets worse, she goes through her things because she doesn't necessarily remember everything that she has that are hers, and she like rediscovers things, and sometimes she'll remember what it is, sometimes she won't. It'll just be like a new thing to her. The records were for the most part they are in good condition. They're listenable, but the actual outside, they've been worn, they've been listened to. My mom enjoys music, but she has currently like over like almost 600 records. It's ridiculous. It's not ridiculous. It's awesome, but at the same time, it's a lot. They're heavy, and my dad had 78, and they're heavier. She was going through them, and when the record doesn't go into the sleeve properly, she was like jamming it in, and it was ripping them and making them. I don't want to say it's devaluing them, but it's just ruining them. And if she was in her right mind, I highly doubt that she revered these things. Like she kept them fairly neat and tidy, and that was like a big thing for her because like when she was younger, her brother, who was into drugs, unfortunately, and that is how he passed, stole a lot of her records in like 45s, I believe, to sell for money. So, and she moved 32 times in her life, which I find like, I don't even know how that's done. Like, what, next day you're moving? But it did. She named all the places, but I wish I had written it down. I wish I had recorded it at that moment. But anyway, her parents were not very good with finances, which, you know, I'm sure is a genetic thing because she wasn't, and I'm half not that great. I got some of my dad's know-how, but a little too much of my mom's inexperience with it, unfortunately, or immaturity with it, I should say. But anyway, so she moved so much, she didn't have a lot of things because she lost a lot of things in all of those moves. Like she didn't bring everything, or got lost, it got, you know, stolen, or got broken, or just in the mix, it just was not there. So when we ended up having to move from Hamilton, where we were for almost 30 years, I made sure the vast majority of the things that we brought with us were her things, because I wanted to make sure this move was not going to be like the last moves. I made concessions with I didn't bring all of my things. So some of it was ruined anyway, like I have said in other previous, like either blog posts, lives, or these podcasts, that a lot of my stuff was ruined because it was in the basement, and we had like massive flooding in our basement from the pipes bursting and being, you know, the old house that it was. So a lot of things had gotten ruined anyhow. So it wasn't a major loss, and I have my My Little Pony still. I have my Fraggle Rock dolls. I have all my books, you know, and I have all of my memorabilia that I had for like the Monkees, Duran Duran, Depeche Mode, all the things. So, I mean, honestly, like if I wanted to live a minimalist life, I probably have the most minimal things in this house currently. Like my son and my mom have the most. Anyway, back on target. So pop music, I looked them up. I didn't really listen so much to the music. I just wanted to read about them. They were the first electro pop music. However, the breakthrough song that came over to the US, so you have to figure it's the British invasion, so it's over in the United Kingdom or Europe, like the European areas, right? Because I know like the UK isn't part of the European Union anymore, but back then they were. So the breakthrough song that got into the US was Don't You Want Me by Human League, which I love. There was a couple of songs like Fascination, and there was like a newer song that they had. Oh, I have it over here. I should just look it up. I have my my music up because I was listening to it prior to me deciding to just do this recording. Okay, so I have All I Ever Wanted, which is a newer song. I want to say it's like 20 years old now, but it's not from the 80s. That's a good song now. All I Ever Wanted, look it up, good one. And Fascination, or Keep Feeling Fascination, which is the one, like, if you've seen the videos for Human League, you know, you gotta love them. And if I was in the 80s and I saw, you know, going from whatever it was prior that I was listening to, and then you're seeing this, and you're like, oh my, this is fascinating. So I would have been just as fascinated as everybody else. So that was the breakthrough song. Park Pewterball at Rolling Stone in November of 1983, he dubbed it Anglomania, because it went from the breakthrough song to so many other things coming in. So Duran Duran, which I've talked about before, and I have them in my list, and they're one of, like, you know, top bands for me, one of the top bands that I listen to. Although my my replay on YouTube Music, I don't use Spotify. Funny thing, my podcast is on Spotify, and I will listen to other podcasts on Spotify, but I do not listen to music through Spotify. It's all through YouTube Music because I have YouTube Premium, you know, because I'm bougie like that. Okay, we're taking all that out. All right, so like I said, Duran Duran. So Duran Duran were one of the earliest British new pop groups to achieve mainstream success, and that was with their album Rio. So they had a first one, was just like self-titled album, like Duran Duran, and that had things like Night Boat. They actually added, I believe, to that when they resubmitted it to the US. I'm gonna look up Duran Duran. They added the song Is There Something I Should Know. So if you listen through the album, the original like self-titled album, it goes from your basic, like very, very early 80s music to there something I should know. It doesn't flow. You can tell it was added in afterwards. So you had like Girls on Film, Planet Earth, Careless Memories, Nightboat, like I said, Sound of Thunder, Friends of Mine, and Tel Aviv. I love Tel Aviv, actually. That's a instrumental. It is chef's kiss. Anyway, so and then there's Is There Something I Should Know, which was added when they released it in the US to add on to it. Because most of it when they did break through to the United States, it was for the album Rio. That was their biggest one. So you had, as you might have heard of it, so besides it being like Anglo-Media or the second British invasion, you might classify this type of music or this style of music as the New Romantics, which was based in London and Birmingham in the late 1970s. The definition for that would just be like flamboyant, eccentric fashion. They were known as Blitz Kids, which there was a venue called the Blitz, New Dandies, and Romantic Rebels. So it was just like they were influenced by David Bowie, Mark Bolan, and Roxy Music. However, not all bands embraced that term, because the reason why they said like the Romantics is because of the style and the fashion. So like the poofy shirts and like, you know, the romanticized vision of these people. But they didn't want to all be like under that umbrella. There was like bands like Depeche Mode were not New Romantics. You know, they were mislabeled as such, but they were not. And there was a bunch of other ones that were just like, that's not who we are, and that's not who we want to be classified under. So, however, I believe Duran Duran were pretty cool with it being like, okay, sure, New Romantics, whatever. Bands owing the music video for success. So these bands that we know and love could owe most of their popularity to the music video and MTV. Bands like Flock of Seagulls for Iran. That video played so frequently that you couldn't help but know the song and just want to get it or listen to it or go and see these people or check out whatever else they might have. And that dude's hairstyle, I mean, who could go wrong, right? So obviously Duran Duran, they always went to like exotic places. The backdrop for all of their videos, or most of their videos, were like pretty, like they were pretty, you know, and they say like their glossy look, like they were always they're made up, their hair was done. You can't deny they were good looking guys, and they utilized that. Besides the fact that, you know, they do have some good songs. I'm not saying that they were like the best band ever and had like, because not to be dumping on Duran Duran here, but Simon Le Bon, who was a good portion of the lyricist, although I believe they classify it as like a joint effort. Some of the words to the songs are very disjointed. They don't really make sense. There's not a lot of linear thinking. I think he writes a lot more like emotionally, which is fine. It's poetry. Good on you. However, like a song like Ordinary World, that spoke to me. And that was, I think he won an award for the songwriting, which deservedly so, because it was beautiful. Still is. They owed part of their popularity because of like the music was great anyway. They had a really great energetic presence when you saw them live. I just never have. But a lot of it had to do with their videos, the way they looked, you know, and they just skyrocketed. And I believe Princess Diana, R.I.P., and you will always be missed. Oh, that was one of her favorite bands. So there's that. So Billy Idol, while he was awesome anyway, his White Wedding and the Eyes Without a Face, and then going into like Rebel Yell, that whole thing was a lot owed to the music video and the excessive playtime that it got. Bonnie Tyler for Total Eclipse of the Heart, Robert Palmer, come on, Addicted to Love, and Spandau Ballet, true. All right, I think I will be talking about that later, but Spandau Ballet, there was a lot said about them actually. And I think that, weren't they like, I watched a lot of like the VH1 pop-up video. I mentioned this before for the MTV generation, so this kind of ties in a little bit, but the behind the music and stuff like that. I think there was like a friendly quote unquote rivalry between Duran Duran and Spandau Ballet. But let me just ask a question, okay? And I know I won't get an answer. I will answer it for myself. But if you would like to answer, you can comment on any of this. That's fine. Spandau Ballet was put up against Duran Duran. Now they were and I was reading a lot about saying like how they were like romanticized and stuff, and I mean no disrespect to anybody, you know. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. However, if you were going to put like Spandau Ballet and Duran Duran next to each other and you're like there's a if it was via music, that's a completely different thing, and it's obviously people's opinion and preferences. Same with looks, but come on. Duran Duran were so over made to look like almost like fake humans, you know, versus like, you know, Spandau. I don't know. I just feel like there wasn't really much competition in the looks department per se, but I don't know. That's just my opinion. As I'm reading it, I'm like, seriously? Like this was a thing? I'm not a huge fan of Spandau Ballet, but I do know the song True. When they're in like an empty pool. There's that. And I have made mention many times with the videos, okay, that most of these songs have a story, or even with, like I was saying, with Simon Le Bon's more of like a emotional feeling, you can still utilize that in the video to make a story. Yet you have these videos that make absolutely no sense. There's no tie-in to the song at all. Spandau Ballet, True, is just them like dressed up in like, you know, suits and in an empty pool. But you could have made a story out of this. Like, I feel like they, at the height of the utilization of the video, they kind of missed out a bit. But maybe it was just because of budgeting, I don't know, or they weren't looking for writers for that. I wish I kind of was around at that time being like, okay, I got this. Let's do this. I'll storyboard the damn thing. I don't even care if it's stick figures because I'm not a big drawer, but I can write. Artist, drawer, you know, whatever. English. Anyhow. Bananarama, Cruel Summer, and Venus. I believe that's really all they're known for, at least over here. They're obviously bigger in the UK. Culture Club and the Eurythmics were big because of the androgynous look. They're technologically oriented in their music. So for the Eurythmics, you have Annie Lennox, who was, you know, really, really short, like, you know, hair. She is beautiful, and she still sounds awesome, and I wish I could be her. And obviously Culture Club, you have Boy George, who was like, you know, very flamboyant with this stuff, and he was just a beautiful guy, you know, honestly, and how he sang and how he did it, his hair, what he wore, it was just, you know, that flamboyancy, which is they're saying for like the New Romantics. However, I don't know if Culture Club was one of those people who, or bands that were just like, stop calling us this, but they could be easily kind of under that umbrella if they so choose to be. So many Second Invasion artists started out in the punk era, which makes sense. You had like the Sex Pistols, all of like the original punk. I don't know a lot of punk, I'm so sorry. But yeah, they started out that way. They kind of started out, and it was mainly because for the punk era, or that punk music was supposed to be kind of going against the grain, whether it be social unrest, which was a lot to do with it, but also like the anarchy and just being different. They wanted to be different because I guess they were just tired of like falling in line. So the punk era was a big thing, and it was highly influenced with the Second Invasion. However, they weren't necessarily punk, but they were highly influenced by it. You know, like the want for change, how they're dressed, the sound of the music, and so on and so forth. So in the next ones, we will have, I'm just going through the songs that were highly influenced by one, well, obviously their popularity, but also the video. So you have Police's Synchronicity, which was #1 on the Billboard for 17 weeks with Every Breath You Take. And I remember that video with him just, you know, strumming that cello. or that big bass. Wham, Wake Me Up Before You Go Go. I know, like, maybe I had to just be at that time and that age to be like, oh my God, you know, but I wasn't like a Wham fan. But I did like George Michael, who did the Careless Whisper. Excellent song. Excellent song. So that was there too. So that was a big thing, and owing a lot to the music video. Simple Minds. So Simple Minds was one that skyrocketed through because of Don't You Forget About Me, because of the Brat Pack movie, The Breakfast Club. And there were ones that also kind of flew into noticeability and skyrocketed in popularity for a song. It may be more. Was the Psychedelic Furs, which they did the song Pretty in Pink. Obviously also a Brat Pack movie. I don't know if you guys, if you've obviously, if anybody's listening to this or whatever, if you've seen the movie Pretty in Pink and you've heard the song, I'm not a huge Psychedelic Furs either, because it's like, pretty in pink, isn't she? You know, it's like, but I get it. It's different. Just not my cup of tea. And then you have John Parr for St. Elmo's Fire, song for the movie, and Orchestra Maneuvers in the Dark, If You Leave, which is the prom scene in Pretty in Pink. And again, most of these, they were up on the top, on the Billboard Hot 100s, top 40, because of the song, because of the video, and it also integrated, because if you watch the Don't You Forget About It, integrated parts of the movie. So if you watch the movie, fan of the movie, it all coincides. So they kind of skyrocketed because of both of those boosts. Getting away from the Brat Pack movie, so you had Tears for Fears with Shout. That was on for 3 weeks at number 1. I love Tears for Fears, and I even their stuff now. If you've listened, I was at Turning Point. Great song, awesome song. Then there was the progressive rock area. So you had like Genesis, Yes, and the Alan Parsons Project, or just Alan Parsons. I thought it was a project. I didn't write project, so we'll just say Alan Parsons. And then you had the OG British Invasion artists, they had a big push in popularity because people were searching out other British artists. And so they were kind of having a reemergence of their own popularity that kind of got, waned a little bit in the 70s and now got pushed again in the 80s. And they were, making music still. So whether or not they changed their sound or kind of integrated the new sound with what they originally had, they were experiencing a new surge in popularity, which was David Bowie, Paul McCartney, Elton John, Rod Stewart. So you had like the OG were like the Rolling Stones, George Harrison, the Kinks, the Hollies, the Moody Blues, and Eddie Grant. So people were rediscovering their music as well as whatever they were coming out with at the time. And then you had the increase in established acts that were established either whether like end of the 70s or whatever. You had Queen, Phil Collins, and that's I think is all I put in there. But so you didn't just have people who were listening to the 80s music and like, this is great. This is great. New Romantics, electro pop, whatever you want to call it. And then they were just like, you know what, I can't get enough of this stuff. What else are they releasing? So they're kind of researching into British acts. And so these British acts were ones that were already established, and they're seeing like people like playing them more, buying more of their albums, and they're also releasing current stuff and the videos, right? So you're seeing more of them. David Bowie was always fairly flamboyant throughout majority of his career anyway. My mom has almost every album of him, and she actually met him in Philadelphia, Sigma Sound Studio. So my mom met David Bowie outside of the Sigma Sound Studios in Philadelphia. It was founded in 1968 by Joseph Tarsia, and it's located at 212 North 12th Street in Philadelphia. It is not, I don't know if it is, I don't think it's still open, right? Yeah, it's closed. That's a shame. So it says there's 6,000 unclaimed tapes from Sigma's 35-year-old tape library, but they're now part of the Drexel University Audio Archive. Wow, that's really cool. I did not know that. But anyway, so she met him outside of that And that must have, she said he was super nice, that she was, my mom has always been very, very, I want to say bubbly. She has like, but I don't want to say like necessarily charisma, because I don't think that she has that pull on people, but she definitely has the energy and the want to talk to people, and that kind of like endears you to her. It's not so much charisma, because I don't know if people would follow her, but I think she would be that person who just kind of like brings up the energy with you and just, talks and makes you feel comfortable. So I guess she had a conversation with him. I don't know what the conversation was about, but at least she told me about it. I'm glad I know, and I'm glad I know where. So I think that's pretty cool. I will never obviously know him. I will never ever meet him or see him, unfortunately. I know he was going to be touring, and then he died. And I was very upset about that. I was very, very, very upset about that. So yeah, so Sigma Sound Studios. So that was pretty cool. All right. Anyway, back to it. So yeah, David Bowie already had like that kind of persona for him already. So it wasn't like, I feel like he kind of like downplayed a little bit more. Like he was more flamboyant during the 70s than he was in the 80s during this new romantics movement, right? So that's pretty neat. But anyway, so while the 80s waned, so did the British acts on the Hot 100. So, however, as late as the mid 90s, which this is what I'm saying, like it waned during the 80s, and people would probably think the second British invasion ended within the 80s, right? So whether it be like, every time I have this very close to my face. So I'm so sorry. I move my hands. I'm Italian. Apologies. They're saying that they're as late as the mid 90s. So with the Spice Girls and other acts like Oasis, Blur, Take That, and The Verve, they were identified as part of the second British invasion. Maybe just like that trailing bit in the 90s. Some were associated with the Britpop movement in their native UK. So it wasn't here, but in the UK, they had their own little movement during the 90s. So like the Spice Girls, Oasis, all that, whatever, right? But they do, I guess, the historians, whoever they are, whoever indicates where the British invasions came and went, they still kind of classify the tail end of that as these bands like the Spice Girls as part of that second British invasion, which I found interesting. Because I just believe that it was like the first British invasion during the 60s, second British invasion during the 80s, and that was that. But no, they actually kind of went through the cracks in the 90s as well. So over time, British acts became less prevalent in the U.S. charts. I don't know if does anybody actually pay attention to the charts anymore, honestly? Like the Hot 100s, do you just check it out just to see what the new music is out, or what, who they find popular? I don't like, who indicates this stuff. Like I don't really know, because most of my stuff, I haven't bought an album. Record, yes, I have bought a record, but that's like, special edition stuff now anyway. And I actually have bought old stuff. Regardless, I haven't bought like a CD or purchased a song online in years. So now everything's streaming, and that's what I have on for like YouTube Music, because I like that freedom to be able to be like, you know what, I don't want to listen to this artist right now. I'm going to listen to this artist. It's a lot more immediate. What I like to complain about, right? The immediacy. But in some cases I'll agree with it. So do you actually check out the charts? Like, is that something that we like? I know they have award ceremonies and stuff for that, but I don't watch them, nor do I care, because I listen to what I listen to. I don't listen to just because they're popular. Anyhow, so they were less prevalent in the U.S. So April 27th of 2002, after 40 years of having a British act on the Hot 100, in 2002, on April 27th, there weren't any British acts on the Hot 100. And that kind of sparked, like, that was it. There was no more, there was it. That's, but they had already been kind of waning anyway. And that was that. So that's the British invasion. We are overdue for another, I think. We need some injection of good music. I'm not saying there isn't any good music out right now. So my replay that I was talking about from YouTube, because like I said, I don't listen to music on Spotify, So my replay has classical music because I love listening to piano or violin. So Lindsay Sterling is awesome. If you have not listened to any of her stuff, she was on, I think, America's Got Talent. I don't know, because she dances and plays. She also was on, I think, Dancing with the Stars as well. She's an awesome dancer, awesome violinist. Please check it out if you haven't. Lindsay Sterling. But I was listening to Hozier. He's British. So there you go. His The Shelby Part 2. That's great. I was listening to Gold on the Ceiling with the Black Keys. Canned Heat by Jamiroquai. I loved Virtual Insanity. He's also British. And he was part of like that funk underground that they did over in the UK, if anybody's familiar with that. He came from that. And like Virtual Insanity will always be a favorite of mine. Like Canned Heat's great. Obviously, you've got Napoleon Dynamite, for God's sake. What else? Deeper Underground. That was good. If anybody ever played iToy on PlayStation 2, when you had to do the dancing, I can't remember what that actual game was called, but it was specifically for the iToy if you had it. And Deeper Underground was one of them. One of the songs on there. I got a lot of songs off of the iToy game and also the Dance Dance Revolution game. Come on, Darude Sandstorm was on there. What else do I have? Luminary by Joel Sonny. He's a violinist as well. I love violin music. What can I say? And Sleep Thief. I love Sleep Thief. Sleep Thief. So my 37% is electronic dance music. Now, let me tell you something. When I listen to music, it's usually when I'm writing, and it's a different type of music. If I'm cleaning, I need something upbeat that keeps me going. If I'm in my head with like imagining stuff, dance music can also be very good because it kind of like fuels that. I also listen to 21% of pop music. I don't know. Pop music I feel like is a very broad term. So I don't really know which ones would be, because they sometimes classify themselves under a couple of different genres. So you have 14% rock, 13% independent music, and 4% heavy metal. I'm kind of all over the place with some things. We've had a lot of interesting music as we went along, and I do believe right now we kind of need a little bit of an injection of something. I don't know. Maybe it's just because right now I'm in a rut with music. I don't really have. I've been trying to find some new things to listen to because after a while you're like I just need something else. Or I'll go back to something I haven't listened to in a while. And I like that's what YouTube Music will have, like a whole section that says like gone but not forgotten, like area. They'll go back and be like ones that you used to listen to but haven't listened to in a while. So sometimes you're like, oh yeah, I forgot that song. Or yeah, it's been a while and I do miss listening to it. So it's kind of neat to see that come through. But yeah, I love music. Music has been and always will be consistent. It's a constant in my life. It's a constant from day one, honestly, because my mom always listened to music. In our old house in Southampton, Pennsylvania. So my mom in the Southampton house, she had, or my dad actually had, it wasn't, my dad put it in there, but they had speakers, surround sound speakers in the ceiling of the front living room. There was two rooms. There was a back room that after a while that stored our pool table, but that used to also be our living room. But then he moved it into the front. That used to be the garage. He converted it. I have a picture of me with my dad. I was like, had to have been like 2 or 3 years old, and he had broke through the wall and that went into the garage, and he made that into a whole other room. There was a bar in the back there. He had like, I miss parts of that house. I don't necessarily miss the house. He had a bar, and then they had a record player and a cassette player that was in the back of the bar that would pipe through, and the radio obviously, but that would pipe through the surround in the living room. And my mom, like I said, had a tremendous amount of records, would play music or play WMMR or whatever. And she would also watch MTV. So my mom was pretty much the catalyst for me getting so much into music. My dad was into music. Don't get it twisted that he wasn't into music. It was just different music, okay? So he was born in 1928, so he loved Frank Sinatra. He loved Mario Lanza. He loved Glenn Miller. He loved big band things and any of the Rat Pack. So like Sammy Davis Jr. or Dean Martin, any of these people, like my dad would listen to. And I don't know. Oh, I real quick story, and then I'll wrap this up. I apologize for these getting a little bit longer, but quick story. It has to do with music, so there is a segue here. The year that Kansas, was it Kansas? All right, so the song Dust in the Wind by Kansas, I guess it just had come out. Let me just see when that came out. I can leave this in because I'd have to see when it came out. When was it released? Can you tell me what year? 1977. So this was, if you listen to any of my, my podcasts regarding Family Dynamic, please listen to it if you haven't. The Family Dynamic, my mom was the other woman. Salacious, right? Go listen to it if you want to know more. So in 1977, that Kansas song came out, Dust in the Wind, and my mom and dad would go to a diner that had, if you remember at the diners, they would have the little like jukebox type of thing where you just like select a song at your table and had like the cycle through the songs, and she would always play Dust in the Wind. And my dad would make fun of her. He's like, "Oh, yeah, it's just dust in the wind," and it would be like off key all the time. And she told me about that. Whether or not he liked that type of stuff, I don't really know. That wasn't something I asked him. I was more into like, because he collected so many different things. I was more interested in why he collected the stuff he collected. You know, how he knew how to like look at them, value them, and stuff like that. So I was very much into all of that. Not into like, I guess, trivial stuff like music at the time. Although it would have been nice to ask him if he was interested in anything that was out at the time. Like, did he like music that much or whatever? He would always have music on, but it was mostly like radio. So yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting thing. But anyhow, so I think that's it. No more sidetracks. This will, right now it's almost at another 50 minutes, but it'll get edited down because I have a lot of points where Bryce came and talked to me and I left it recording. Yeah. So thank you so much for listening to all of my podcasts. I've been getting a big upswing in listens, even continuing so. I even gained a follower on Spotify. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you so much. I posted a thing on my Facebook because, you know, I'm old and I use Facebook. That is it sad that I have more followers on my eBay page or my eBay store page than I do on my Spotify? Because I do. I actually have a lot more followers. I sell stuff on there, and I guess because I have 100% feedback, and I've sold over 400 items over the past 2 years. I'm very select with the stuff I sell. So if you're interested in comic books, got them. I got you covered. But anyway, I have a lot of followers on there, but not so much on my Spotify podcast. But please have a follow on YouTube. It's on you. All my podcasts are up on YouTube. Have a look on my website. I have a blog. I have my writing. I have top 5s, top 10s. I know people love lists. And all my podcasts, obviously, on there. And all my podcasts is on any other podcast listening devices that you're, my service that you might use. So like iTunes, Spotify, all that. Podbean, I believe I'm on that too. Google Podcasts is now converted over to YouTube, hence the reason why everything's up on YouTube. I was doing that anyway, but they forced me to just finish it. Anyhow, so thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for everybody who has listened. I appreciate you so much, and I hope you're enjoying these. And if you have any recommendations that you would like me to talk or give you like my insights to it from when I was younger, because we all had different lives, obviously, and if anything you want to know, I'm an open book pretty much. So yeah, so thank you so much. I appreciate you all. This has been That 80s Child, the Generation Y, and I'm Gabrielle, signing off. Bye.